Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Huo Yuhao also laughed. Yes. Even if we die, we will die fighting. I'm very honored to experience this battle with you. At the very least, we are the rare few in the continent who have battled ultimate Doluo one after another. Tang Wutong released his arm and patted him gently on his shoulder. Don't worry, I'll protect you. Huo Yuhao rolled his eyes and said, You, protect me. More like I'll protect you. Just as they were talking, the dark air around them suddenly stabilized as their surroundings became clear once more, and sound returned, along with sight. However, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong were both momentarily stunned. They were no longer outside the Heavenly Soul Empire's royal palace. There wasn't a single trace of urbanization, they were clearly somewhere in the wilderness. What did that mean? It meant that the Darkness Holy Dragon had used his own strength to bring them both out of Heaven Do City into the wilderness. That was just unbelievable. This was an ultimate Doluo's power. Perhaps he didn't yet have the Beast God's ability to pierce through space-time, but even then, to be able to bring them both to this place unwittingly within such a short period of time was far beyond Huo Yuhao's understanding. The Dragon Emperor Doluo smiled as he watched their stern expressions. What's wrong? Are you afraid? Tang Wutong grunted contemptuously. Afraid? What's there to be afraid of? You've just been alive for a few more years than we have. If we had lived in the same generation, you might be afraid of us. Yes. Long Xiaoyao laughed, You're right. If we were in the same generation, I may not have been able to defeat you. You are prodigies of your generation, but I was also a prodigy back then. Now that I think about it, I feel like 200 years is right before my eyes. A tinge of lament appeared in his eyes as he spoke. He nodded gently in Tang Wutong and Huo Yuhao's direction and said, Come, the two of you can team up. Let me see what kind of fighting strength you prodigious youngsters can achieve. Don't think of escaping, because that's absolutely impossible. Fight with your full strength. Warriors who die on the battlefield die an honorable death. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong glanced at each other, and they each saw the other's determination. Huo Yuhao took a slow step forward, and his eye of destiny gradually opened on his forehead. Tang Wutong didn't fight with him for point position. Instead, she took a step back and stood behind him. Their martial souls were unleashed at almost the same time, and 7 soul rings swiftly rose into the air. Huo Yuhao unleashed his spirit eyes. 7 soul rings that were completely out of the ordinary swiftly appeared, and the most eye-catching one was his blood-red soul ring, which appeared at the end. His spirit eye's 6th soul ring came from Wang Qiu'er. The soul ring that she had given him was very special, and it was rose gold in color. It didn't share the same color as normal soul rings, but it shared a color with his eye of destiny instead. His 7th soul ring came from 100,000-year evil eye tyrant, and it was also red. These 2 soul rings were the most glaring amongst his 7 soul rings. Huo Yuhao began to release his formidable soul power, and his entire being seemed to faintly contort. He didn't move immediately, but was just standing there quietly as he stared at Long Xiaoyao. His 7 soul rings glowed one after another. Long Xiaoyao seemed surprised when he saw Huo Yuhao's 7 soul rings. This was the first time that he had seen such a combination. However, the soul rings that he was looking at didn't include the 100,000-year soul ring at the end. Even though it was a 100,000-year soul ring, this arrangement was very normal. One of the 2 soul rings that attracted his attention was Huo Yuhao's rose gold ring, his 6th one, which was filled with the power of destiny. The other one was his white soul ring, his first one, which looked like it was no different from a 10-year soul ring. How powerful was the Darkness Holy Dragon, the Dragon Emperor Doluo? This white ring looked like a 10-year soul ring in normal people's eyes, but that wasn't the case to him. He was very clear on what 10-year soul rings were like. They were white, but they radiated a drastically different aura. Even though the soul power in Huo Yuhao's 10-year soul ring was completely contained, along with its aura, Huo Yuhao's white soul ring had a smoothness that 10-year soul rings didn't have. Faint golden patterns could be seen on its surface, and that was absolutely something that 10-year soul rings couldn't achieve. There's something wrong with this kid's soul rings. Long Xiaoyao thought to himself. Huo Yuhao wasn't hasty to make his move at all. He was just standing there like a statue. Very smart. Long Xiaoyao praised Huo Yuhao in his mind. This kid knows that I, with my status, will never take the initiative to attack him without him making a move first. He wants to raise his aura and his abilities to their highest possible level before attacking me. But would that really be effective? Huo Yuhao's Eye of Destiny gradually opened on his forehead. Rose gold sun patterns of the stretched in all directions, with his Eye of Destiny in the middle. His eyes slowly closed, like he was using his Eye of Destiny to view the world. The light in his Eye of Destiny was crystal clear. Even Long Xiaoyao felt like his Eye of Destiny possessed a strange gravitational force when he took but one look, as if this eye was going to consume his soul. Rose gold patterns glowed as dense spiritual undulations strengthened at an incredible speed. Long Xiaoyao wasn't particularly concerned in the beginning, but an astonished expression quickly began to show on his elderly face. Such formidable spiritual power. Furthermore, his spiritual power is so pure and condensed. Even the Holy Ghost Church's evil soul masters, who use special methods to cultivate their spiritual power, can only reach such a level of spiritual power when they become soul doluo. How is this young man doing this? Huo Yuhao's spiritual power continued to strengthen amid Long Xiaoyao's surprise. His spiritual power wasn't just changing quantitatively, it was also changing qualitatively. Long Xiaoyao wasn't the only one who was astonished. Tang Wutong, who was standing behind him, was equally surprised. She had known Huo Yuhao for quite some time, and they had fought side by side before. Back in the Mingdo mountain range, the two of them went deep into enemy lines together. But because of the death god Doluo's appearance, she didn't see Huo Yuhao's battle with Yi Shishui. Tang Wutong knew that Huo Yuhao was very strong, but she had always believed that her overall strength wasn't inferior to his. However, she was now starting to doubt that opinion. Huo Yuhao's continuously rising spiritual undulations were far stronger than what his cultivation rank could normally achieve. Condensed soul power gradually transformed into circles of rose gold light. This light was very viscous, while Huo Yuhao's body became a little blurry amid all those contorting lights. Huo Yuhao's body gradually floated into the sky as his seventh blood-red soul ring flickered. Rose gold patterns appeared behind his back, forming an image of the three-eyed golden lion. Everything within several hundred meters of him, which included the light around Long Xiaoyao, was tainted with the same colors. Long Xiaoyao sighed in amazement. Is his spiritual power close to that of a titled Doluo's level? No, that's not right. His spiritual power is similar in strength to a titled Doluo, but it is more condensed, and is on another level. All of a sudden, blinding rose gold patterns radiated all around Huo Yuhao, and his body seemed to vanish entirely within them. A vertical eye that seemed material suddenly appeared in mid-air, and the intense spiritual power undulations rose to their highest possible level. Materialization of spiritual power. Long Xiaoyao's eyes grew focused. The Huo Yuhao, who was still sitting in a restaurant outside the royal palace, suddenly dissipated, as it disappeared into countless rose gold light patterns that swiftly flew out of the city. Huo Yuhao had left that spiritual avatar as his contingency plan, so that he could substitute it for his original body, as he was running away to draw the soldiers chasing him away. However, this spiritual avatar lost its meaning when the Dragon Emperor Doluo appeared. As Huo Yuhao unleashed his spiritual power with his full strength, that thread of his spiritual power was immediately recalled by the Eye of the Azura. Radiant golden light transformed into an enormous pillar of light as it surged into the sky. The rose gold vertical eye was just hovering there, and a strange whirlpool spun rapidly within the coldness of the vertical eye's pupil. All of the space that was covered by its rose gold light began to contort in this moment. For the first time, a truly astonished look appeared on the Dragon Emperor Doluo's face. He had originally believed that he was already holding Huo Yuhao in high regard, but it seemed like his judgment was far from sufficient. The spiritual power that this youth displayed far surpassed that of normal title Doluo, and with Long Xiaoyao's 200 years of experience, he could be entirely sure that even transcendent Dulu would have a hard time reaching Huo Yuhao's level of spiritual power. Materializing spiritual power wasn't something that happened with improving one's soul power or cultivation rank. This was an attribute that formidable spiritual type soul masters could achieve. Furthermore, Long Xiaoyao could feel a soul core within his materialized martial soul true body. This was the core of why he was so astonished. Huo Yuhao was a young soul sage, and yet he already possessed a soul core. It was also a soul core for a spiritual type martial soul. Brother Mu, oh Brother Mu. What kind of disciple have you taken in? The judgment of destiny. Huo Yuhao's ice-cold voice echoed through the twisting space, and a golden skull appeared soundlessly above Long Xiaoyao's head. The skull was shattered in the next moment, as it transformed into countless motes of flowing light that flowed into Long Xiaoyao's body. Even an ultimate Doluo like Long Xiaoyao couldn't resist the power of destiny. The darkness around him rippled vigorously, but couldn't dispel the golden light, and he could only allow them into his body. Yes, this was the Eye of Destiny's ability to unleash the judgment of destiny. It couldn't decide the outcome of a battle, but it could change one's destiny. Long Xiaoyao chuckled as he muttered under his breath, I haven't been this surprised in a long time. Interesting, very interesting. Two beams of light blasted from the enormous vertical eye, one black and the other white, as they circled around each other and went straight for Long Xiaoyao. What's this? Long Xiaoyao was still standing there, motionless, and he grinned as he allowed those two beams of light to land on his body. There weren't any soul power undulations, nor were there spiritual undulations. The black and white beams didn't seem to do anything at all. However, Long Xiaoyao's expression changed a little when they actually landed on him, and an inexplicable sense of danger immediately appeared in his mind. I can feel danger. Spiritual shock. A voice with a strange tone rang out, and every syllable uttered made the enormous vertical eye a little brighter. One could see that all the rose gold light that the vertical eye was radiating had turned blood red in this moment. A pillar of light that was the same size as the vertical eye blasted out in the next moment and went right for Long Xiaoyao. Long Xiaoyao snorted as his body, which was originally submerged within all the rose gold colors, suddenly turned black as a dragon roar that seemed to come from ancient ages could be heard. An enormous black dragon head appeared in front of him as it howled deeply at all the rose gold light around him. Spiritual power against spiritual power, this was the arrogance that belonged to an ultimate Doluo. Even though Long Xiaoyao wasn't a spiritual type soul master, his mastery of spiritual power had already reached the limits of terrifying, because he was an ultimate Doluo. However, something that astonished the Dragon Emperor Doluo once more happened. The rose gold pillar of light, that seemed unstoppable, as it zipped through the air suddenly paused. Yes, it paused and a shadow suddenly appeared in front of it. It was Huo Yuhao, who was back in human form. A rose gold wheel of light glowed behind his head. There were patterns of a three-eyed golden lion within this wheel. Huo Yuhao's body slammed almost directly into the giant black dragon head, and he was immediately consumed by the darkness. Everything happened too suddenly, and Long Xiaoyao was momentarily stunned. Afterwards, he looked on in surprise as the black dragon head that he had conjured with his spiritual power dissipated just like that. The figure was still hovering in mid-air, and the rose gold pillar that was reactivated enveloped that shadow before it wrapped around him and slammed brutally into Long Xiaoyao's body. The rose gold pillar's origin, the vertical eye, disappeared in that moment, and a large black door filled with eerie and sinister auras took its place. Huo Yuhao's face was very pale as he stood at the gate's entrance. He was holding Tang Wutong with one of his hands, and her radiant dragon butterfly's wings were outstretched. Let's go. Huo Yuhao dashed into the door as he pulled Tang Wutong along. There would only be one outcome battling an ultimate Doluo, and that was death and defeat. Therefore, Huo Yuhao had never considered fighting against the Dragon Emperor Doluo from the beginning. What he needed was an opportunity. Destiny's judgment from the Eye of the Azura was the first step to creating this chance. Bad luck appearing on his opponent was equivalent to good luck standing on his side. Black and white lights crossed. Those were the three-eyed golden lion's two powerful soul skills conferred by his sixth soul ring, spiritual dispossession, and destiny's demise. They instantly lowered his opponent's defense against both material and spiritual attacks. Even Huo Yuhao didn't know what kind of effect these two powerful soul skills could achieve against an ultimate Doluo. What came next was his most powerful spiritual attack, the Eye of the Azura's spiritual shock. The rose-gold colors almost became blood red when he was using his full strength. Huo Yuhao could only get closer to an ultimate Doluo with spiritual attacks. He had actually paid an enormous price for that momentary pause in the middle, and cracks even appeared in his spiritual sea in that moment because of it. But it was that momentary pause that allowed him to dispel the Eye of the Azura and use instant teleportation to appear in front of his own spiritual shock. What he leveraged was the Dragon Emperor Doluo's arrogance, and he was betting that the Dragon Emperor Doluo would use spiritual power to fight against his own spiritual shock. He was successful in his wager. He used his body to take a hit from the Dragon Emperor Doluo's attack, and he used his soul skill that came from the three-eyed golden lion's skull, Destiny's Adjudication. That soul skill allowed him to become immune to spiritual attacks thrice a day. Huo Yuhao managed to escape from the Evil Eye Tyrant King's assault back then, because of this soul skill. His chances were boosted once more. The black door appeared, because Huo Yuhao was already making his incantations when he became the Eye of the Azura. He relied on his spiritual soul core to do two things at the same time, and his body sustained an enormous burden as he completed the summoning of his spectral demiplane. What Huo Yuhao needed was the last step in creating this opportunity. He made another bet, that his strongest form of spiritual shock could cause the Dragon Emperor Doluo to be momentarily stunned after taking a hit from spiritual dispossession. If every chance came through in the end, then he had a chance to take Tang Wutong into the spectral demiplane and escape from this place. The Eye of the Azura, Destiny's Judgment, Spiritual Dispossession, Destiny's Demise, Spiritual Shock, Instant Teleportation, Destiny's Adjudication, and the opening of his spectral demiplane. Huo Yuhao used 8 soul skills one after another within such a short period of time, and he did all that so he could create a chance for him and Tang Wutong to run away. Did he succeed? Darkness was starting to descend upon them as Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong's bodies were about to disappear into that large door which connected them to the spectral demiplane. Everything in this world seemed to freeze amid the darkness. An elderly voice suddenly resonated through the air, which was already frozen and swallowed by darkness. Almost. You really almost succeeded. A gigantic black dragon claw flickered with dark purple light as it slashed out across this dark space, right at the black door that Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong had just escaped into. The large black door immediately broke apart, as two bodies that were about to disappear suddenly became clear once more. They were forcibly pulled from the darkness surrounding them. The silent darkness vanished as Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong collapsed onto the ground almost at the same time. Tang Wutong's eyes were full of fear as she helped Huo Yuhao back on his feet, who was faltering and about to fall back to the ground. Her expression became increasingly solemn. The darkness holy dragon, the Dragon Emperor Doluo, reappeared within their vision amid the darkness, but he was no longer smiling. His eyes were concentrated on Huo Yuhao's body, and there were unexplainable emotions rippling through his eyes. Now, I must admit that you are much more talented and accomplished than I was when I was younger, Long Xiaoyao spoke sincerely, with your current spiritual power, and the fact that you already possess a soul core for your spiritual type martial soul before your 8th soul ring, you will have a chance to challenge me when you become a transcendent Doluo in the future. If, one day, you can become an ultimate Doluo, then you will be on the same level as the Beast God and the Evil Emperor. If not for my silent darkness domain, you would have successfully escaped, and this episode would have probably become the greatest joke of my later days. Huo Yuhao struggled from Tang Wutong's support. He wiped away the blood that was coming from his nose as he said coldly, "We weren't able to escape in the end, were we?" His nose was bleeding not because the darkness holy dragon had hurt him. Instead, that was because he had paid a huge price to unleash 8 powerful soul skills with his full strength one after another. Every single soul skill was unleashed at its greatest possible level, and even his spiritual sea began to crack. His head was exploding with pain, and it was impossible for him to use spiritual attacks like he did before. But we haven't lost. We will never lose in any moment before we die. Tang Wutong took a step forward from behind Huo Yuhao and stood in front of him. Huo Yuhao was momentarily stunned. Tang Wutong snapped her head around and glanced at him. "Why aren't you willing to trust me? If we had combined our abilities back then, we might have succeeded. You have too much machismo." Huo Yuhao felt a little dazed in that instant as he saw her displeased expression. A thought suddenly surfaced in his mind. If only she had been Donga. If I had teamed up with Donga, our plan would have succeeded. Now, it's my turn. Tang Wutong grunted coldly, as she raced forward like a gust of wind. She was pretty, and she was aloof, and she seemed like the goddess of light that lit up the darkness around them in this moment. She had the determination of a moth pouncing towards fire, and an unwavering resolution. Her pinkish-blue hair swayed in the air like waves, as she continued charging forward. Crisp dragon roars could be heard as brilliant golden flames blazed behind her. A smile appeared on Long Xiaoyao's face once more, as he stared at the determination and arrogance on Tang Wutong's face. He gradually raised his right hand. Right in this moment, Tang Wutong's body suddenly paused in mid-air, as all 7 of her soul rings shone. Her soul rings were also different from normal soul masters. Black, 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 red. She had 6 black rings and 1 red ring, 6 10,000-year soul rings, and a single 100,000-year soul ring. This meant she had potential and talent that wasn't inferior to Huo Yuhao at all. One reason why Bei Bei went to look for Tang Wutong and asked her to ask Huo Yuhao to return, besides the fact that she looked just like Donga, was because Bei Bei hoped that she could let Huo Yuhao slowly walk out from his thoughts and memories of Donga. But there was yet another more important reason, and that was because she was sufficiently powerful. She had 7 powerful soul rings that made her much more powerful than a typical soul sage. Her 7 soul rings flickered as the radiance from her body flourished. The light pattern of a trident appeared on her forehead, and a tinge of blue immediately covered her otherwise golden frame. Tang Wutong raised her head a little amid the bluish-gold colors. She allowed her flowing long hair to drift and sway in the wind, and a bright dragon roar rang out from her mouth. This dragon roar was crisp and bright, and along with the intense bluish-golden light, an enormous dragon-shaped shadow gradually appeared with her body in the middle. That was a colossal dragon, which was flickering with the colors of the rainbow. The dragon seemed very illusory, but there was a dignity and majesty within the illusion that seemed like it could dominate the ages. When it first appeared, the Dragon Emperor Doluo felt it the most acutely. If Huo Yuhao's spiritual power had left him astonished earlier, he was horrified to see the 7-colored dragon projection that shone from Tang Wutong's body. If it was just the color or aura of this projection, the Dragon Emperor Doluo wouldn't have felt it so strongly. More importantly, it was the dominance of the projection that made him felt so overwhelmed. It was a dominance that originated from her lineage. Dragon God. Long Xiaoyao shouted, and subconsciously staggered back. In the past, he and Mu Yan were called the twin holy dragons of black and white. Mu Yan's title was the Dragon God, while he was the Dragon Emperor. However, such titles were only complements to their immense abilities. Their martial souls were the Radiant Holy Dragon and Darkness Holy Dragon respectively, which were both branches of the dragon species. The reason why they were so strong was because they were one of the authentic dragons. The Radiant Holy Dragon and Darkness Holy Dragon were both very respected, and were considered one of the more superior dragons. Long Xiaoyao's martial soul was in fact of the same lineage as Di Qian. However, the difference between his martial soul and Di Qian's was that Di Qian was the clan master of the Black Dragons, since he was the golden-eyed Black Dragon King. If the Darkness Holy Dragon actually existed, it would at most be regarded as an honorary elder of the Black Dragons. The aura that Tang Wutong exuded from her body right now clearly belonged to that of dragons. However, it was much superior to the aura of the Radiant and Darkness Holy Dragons. Furthermore, that terrifying dominance from her aura only belonged to the original Dragon God. Even though the aura that came from Tang Wutong's body was slightly weaker, it was still different from that of the Darkness Holy Dragon. Her abilities weren't enough to threaten Long Xiaoyao, but her streak of dragon aura completely suppressed Long Xiaoyao and his Darkness Holy Dragon, causing him to become fearful. Tang Wutong used the fourth soul skill of her radiant butterfly goddess, dragon god's possession. The seven-colored dragon projection turned into a layer of thin seven-colored dragon scales on Tang Wutong's body. Her dragon scales extended all the way until her lower jaw. Only her head wasn't covered. After she was engulfed by a thin layer of dragon scales, her aura became more and more dominant. Behind her, a pair of wings that were also dyed in the same seven colors rose up. Her second soul ring also started to shine, causing a seven-colored glow to burn brightly. It was her second soul skill, Dragon God's Fury. A high-pitched dragon roar reverberated through the air, forming a huge seven-colored light blade that chopped towards Long Xiaoyao's head. It was Tang Wutong's third soul skill, Radiant Dragon God Slash. At this moment, even Long Xiaoyao couldn't confirm what Tang Wutong's martial soul was. However, there was one thing he was clear about: the blood lineage and aura of the dragon god were present in her martial soul. Earlier, he had thought that Huo Yuhao was the most special, far surpassing any generational talent. But right now, he immediately sensed that Tang Wutong was on the same tier as him when she unleashed her full strength. Even though he had been alive for more than 200 years, he had never even heard of an inherited martial soul of the dragon god before. He lifted his right hand and gently smacked it. The night sky behind him instantly turned pitch black. The radiant dragon god's slash was slowly dissipated by that darkness. However, Long Xiaoyao's body actually shone with streaks of seven-colored light. Although they soon vanished, Tang Wutong's attack was still able to hit him. This showed the effect of the dragon god's blood lineage in her attack. Tang Wutong's attacks didn't cease just like that. She continued to charge forward, but her body transformed. The seven-colored dragon projection appeared once again. However, it was no longer illusory this time. It was well and truly real. It was a small and delicate seven-colored dragon. A pair of butterfly-shaped dragon wings opened behind her back. Seven-colored scales reflected bright lights. This small seven-colored dragon was only 7 meters long. It was very small and weak compared to a real dragon. Even most of the mature earth dragons were bigger than it. However, as it appeared, Long Xiaoyao took another step back. By unleashing the dragon's god possession through her radiant butterfly goddess, it would naturally evolve into the dragon god's descent. Of course, it wasn't the true dragon god, but that streak of strength from the dragon god's lineage was still unleashed to its greatest potential. The reason why Long Xiaoyao stepped back was because her dragon god's aura had become stronger. If it were Yi Shishui, things might even still be better. But Long Xiaoyao's darkness holy dragon naturally developed some fear in front of the dragon god's aura. It was not something that could be made up for using his cultivation. Tang Wutong's wings slashed down instantly. It was her dragon wings guillotine. Long Xiaoyao lifted his right hand. Tang Wutong felt as if she had hit some kind of viscous fluid, which hindered her. It even felt as if she was stuck to something. Roar, another sonorous dragon roar sounded. The seven-colored dragon roared furiously at Long Xiaoyao, and Tang Wutong's fifth soul ring shone brightly. It was her fifth soul skill, Dragon God's Roar. A huge seven-colored dragon head appeared behind Tang Wutong. Following this roar, an intense seven-colored glow, which was around as large as Tang Wutong, was released in Long Xiaoyao's direction. The black current around Long Xiaoyao's body was greatly dissipated by this seven-colored glow. Tang Wutong unleashed her full strength, but why would Long Xiaoyao let her achieve what she wanted? He snorted coldly before the viscous black moved up to the seven-colored dragon wings. The incredible difference in their cultivations couldn't be made up for just from the strength of Tang Wutong's lineage. Tang Wutong only felt a wave of invisible, dark aura suppressing her spiritual power. This leapt her dragon god's aura from spreading any further. At this moment, the surrounding temperature suddenly fell significantly. A snow-white figure appeared beside Tang Wutong and pressed her palm towards Long Xiaoyao's head. The temperature didn't actually fall. The chill came from within. Yes, it came from within Long Xiaoyao's body. What? Long Xiaoyao was stunned. He immediately flipped his left palm to receive the incoming palm. Empress Sword, Empress Palm, Empress Chill. It was the Snow Empress and the Snowless Glacier. The Snow Empress snorted gently, and her snow-white figure became illusory. A jade-green figure replaced her, and a sinister white light swept past. Long Xiaoyao pointed with his finger, and a ring rang out. The jade-green figure instantly turned illusory, before it backed off. Long Xiaoyao's left arm was quickly frozen from the consecutive strikes. A layer of frost engulfed his entire arm. His arm turned completely numb. Even with his cultivation, he couldn't instantly neutralize it. Destiny's demise had taken effect, and his material defense had been lowered. Otherwise, how could Long Xiaoyao be frozen, given that the Snow Empress and Ice Empress weren't in their original form? It was at this moment that a figure that exuded strong rose-gold light appeared. A palm also appeared with this figure. Weird emotional undulations spread in the air. Sorrow, yearning, love, pain and all kinds of other emotions gathered in this palm. It was the Haodong palm, a palm which lasted eternally. Long Xiaoyao's right palm was controlling Tang Wutong, and his left palm was frozen. However, at this moment, he seemed very calm. He wasn't as stunned as before. He retracted his right palm, and blocked Huo Yuhao's palm. When their palms collided, Huo Yuhao was flung back. Long Xiaoyao's body also jerked slightly, and he revealed a confused look in his eyes. At this instant, he seemed to have returned to 200 years ago, when he was first making a name with Mu Yan, and met Yi Shishui. White and jade green combined. Two hands were holding onto each other. The light projection reformed. It was as if they had instantly arrived in another world. Everything around them instantly turned into a land of ice and snow. The Ice Empress and Snow Empress disappeared. A rebuke that seemed to come from the ice plains of the extreme north descended from the sky. Two giant beams of white and jade-green light instantly descended. The boundless darkness was crushed by that miraculous white and green, turning into powder. Long Xiaoyao's body shook. In the next moment, he had already turned into an ice statue. Tang Wutong struggled and managed to break free from her restraints. She flew back into the air. Bang, the ice statue exploded, scattering ice everywhere. It was the ice explosion technique. The ice formed from ultimate ice was immediately blown apart, as the pride of the Ice and Snow Empresses was unleashed. Huo Yuhao crashed to the ground and grabbed his left hand. Is it over? It wasn't just his spirit eyes that could unleash the strength of a title Doluo. When he used his full strength, he could do it with his ultimate ice martial soul too. After the Snow Empress recovered, the pride of the Ice and Snow Empresses had already regained its full strength. The fusion of the Ice and Snow Empresses caused the temperature of ultimate ice to fall below negative 240 degrees Celsius. This terrifyingly low temperature instantly drained Huo Yuhao's soul power. However, he still managed to complete this strike, because both the Ice and Snow Empresses had absorbed the manifold mysterious ice essence, giving him a stable foundation. This could already compare to the all-out attack of a title Doluo. The Dragon Emperor Doluo was complacent. Along with Destiny's demise and spiritual dispossession, as well as the judgment of destiny, he was struck with the greatest misfortune. The Dragon Emperor Doluo disappeared. It was as if he had died from the ice explosion technique. Tang Wutong had already retreated to Huo Yuhao's side, and pulled him up. The two of them looked at each other, revealing puzzled looks in their eyes. Win? Did we win? The answer was no. Darkness, boundless, irresistible and terrifying darkness descended once again. Everything seemed to have stopped. Time, movement and Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong's blood and soul power slowed. At this moment, the two of them became statues. They stood there quietly, and only saw the dejected look in each other's eyes. Long Xiaoyao slowly walked out from the darkness, just like he did when he first walked out from the Heavenly Soul Empire's imperial palace. His white hair looked a little messy now. His clothes were also a little messy. However, this was the worst it got for him. How could an ultimate Doluo be killed so easily? The two of you have indeed given me a lot of surprises. I didn't expect young people to be so good nowadays. The new generation of youngsters has surpassed the older generations. Long Xiaoyao didn't feel down, just because he was in a slightly pathetic state right now. On the contrary, he seemed to be very happy. He gestured towards Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong. Huo Yuhao didn't move, but Tang Wutong directly flew towards and landed in front of him. From the start until the end, Tang Wutong wasn't able to move no matter how much she tried to circulate her soul power. She could only watch, as she was sucked over by Long Xiaoyao. What a beautiful young lady. If I were 200 years younger, I might even chase you. Long Xiaoyao's expression turned cold. The game is over. The darkness was removed, and Long Xiaoyao's hand was on Tang Wutong's shoulder. It was just a frail and elderly hand, but Tang Wutong felt as if everything in her body had been sealed. She couldn't even muster her strength, and only stood there just like that. Huo Yuhao fell to the ground. All the fighting earlier had completely drained him. Long Xiaoyao said, Huo Yuhao, do you know why I haven't killed you yet? Given my abilities, I just need one strike to kill you. Huo Yuhao laughed coldly. I don't think it'll be so easy. You're afraid that the beast god will descend, aren't you? Long Xiaoyao laughed. I said that I have many methods of making you unable to use Di Qian's strength. Since you don't really believe me, we can give it a go right now. As he spoke, he waved his hand at Huo Yuhao. A streak of black light flashed and landed in front of Huo Yuhao. When Huo Yuhao lowered his head to look at it, he found out that it was a pitch-black dagger that had landed by the side of his foot. Long Xiaoyao pressed his hand on Tang Wutong's shoulder, while his other hand held a dagger that was identical to the one beside Huo Yuhao. You can choose between stabbing yourself or letting me stab her. You have 9 tries, and each stab has to be on your backbone. You can choose the exact position. You'll stab once for every number I count. If you hesitate, she'll take the stabs for you. After 9 stabs, both of you can leave. Huo Yuhao was stunned. He didn't expect Long Xiaoyao to use such a method to threaten him. An ultimate Dolor actually used a young lady to threaten him. This video will end here.